Winner's Circle has helped me, from the osmosis of winning energy, people around me winning constantly, and the perspective and the proportion of their wins too aligns me, and so my entire life I've always been in winning circles, and that's how I've gotten to where I am.
Welcome back to another episode of Failure. I have the host, Ryan himself, and we have our guest, Ted. Today is going to be really, really interesting, guys. So make sure you lock in and drop your comments below. Ted is known for MySpace, but in MySpace, he had a special part in that, and we're going to dive into it, and we'll get a little deeper and figure out also how Facebook was able to move MySpace out of its space.
It's a lot of space.
It's a lot of space because for
success, failure.
There you go. For a couple of years, it was just MySpace. So, Ted, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on, Ted.
Thank you.
And let's dive right into it. So, you're known for that, but just sitting here and talking with you.
I know for a lot of things, but
Yeah,
that was like, because in our time, I think it's funny, a lot of the kids,
they don't know what
MySpace is. But in our day, you said MySpace, it was today like saying Instagram.
For sure.
Yeah.
It was unheard of. Was it Black? Time out. Was Black Planet before or after MySpace?
During.
Oh. Was that your competition, or was it no competition at all?
I don't think it was a competition for us. We did recognize that it was around. But you said something really funny. You said, I was known for MySpace. That's kind of like my peak. So I should have pulled a parachute like Kurt Cobain.
Boom, right away.
Just kidding.
No. Well, okay. So, so one of the reasons we do that, and the whole point of this show, the reason we call it Failure, is we're surrounded, and this came up. We kind of came together because we both, separately in our different lives, yet we do things very similarly, realized everything that's out there today, all the podcasts, everything that social media, all they talk about is success. It's like, look how successful I am. Look at the company I built. I sold this for $1 million. I just bought a Ferrari. I just bought a mansion. I got all this. And it's like, my 8-year-old, that's what he's seeing all day. There was a point I talked about on the show where he's talking about Elon Musk and Mr. Beast. And so I'm like, every successful person I know, myself included, that I've ever met, whether it's in the NBA, whether it's in acting, whether it's in business, whether it's, has failed 50 times, gotten back up, and then made a success. You don't just go make a success. But today's kids, they just see like this Instagram, it's success. So when he brings it up and says you're known for MySpace, the reason we go there versus, obviously you've done a lot since, which I want to get to, and you've been very successful since. But the point is, we don't focus on like the fact that you have a Bugatti, which I know you do.
For sure.
And which is awesome. One of the first, I think, Veyrons, right?
Sure,
2011. What do you call it? Baby Bug?
Ladybug.
And, we don't focus on the fact that you've gone and built 3 companies since then that are very successful and advise a lot of big companies and sit on boards and, very sought after. We focus on, let's talk about you had what was arguably the biggest social media company in the whole fucking world at the time in MySpace. And then it went down. And it's not your fault, but it went down. And what we want to focus on, and what we talk about here, is for everybody watching, they're all going through, they're going down. Everybody has to go down. You cannot go up without going down. And so that's why he goes to that, saying that was your peak. It's your peak. Look, my peak was Relativity. We had the largest studio, largest sports agency, largest television company. It went into a bankruptcy. And I'll gladly talk about it because I'm like, I wouldn't be where I am today without that. And I never would take it back.
Sure.
So going to what you're talking about, we really want to dig into that because, well, the kids may not know. I want them to know it was like literally bigger than Instagram at the time. There was only MySpace. There was nothing else. So maybe we can talk first about the rise of that and what it felt like. And because also that's the other thing is people don't know what it's like to work your fucking ass off, start from the bottom. Everybody says you're crazy. Everybody says it's never going to work. And then every time it starts to work, they're predicting your demise. And then it works better. And then they're predicting the next thing. And then it gets to a level where you have to one-up yourself.
It's true. And that's a valid thing because we had to feel that in 2008. How are we going to one up and then we had to realize that that's not important. You know, everything, a lot of other stuff is, but I'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when we started MySpace, it was, you know, we were in a garage with Steve Wozniak, you know, he was in the garage with us. No, I'm just kidding. No.
I was like, really? He was like, I thought he was just off doing acid.
We were in Cupertino. No, just kidding. No, we weren't. We were here. We were here in LA. And actually, I was at another company. I was one of the early guys at a company called Lower My Bills, which we sold to Experian subsequently. There's some guys in our office at an email marketing company called ResponseBase, and they happen to be Tom, Chris, and Josh Berman, and a few of the other guys, the original MySpace guys. So we became, you know, we met each other during that time. We were sharing pizzas with them because they were in our office at the same time, but we were in different companies, you know. After we sold Lower My Bills, Tom said, hey, we're going after Friendster. So, you know, at that point, but then a lot of people didn't really understand.
Friendster.
A lot of people didn't understand like what we wanted to do with it. We wanted to make a non-taboo dating site. Not a lot of people don't know this. Tom was on Match.
I kind of remember that actually, because Tom was your first friend on every.
First friend, yeah.
As soon as you joined MySpace, every person was automatically friends with Tom.
Yeah, it was really.
Remember that?
It was fun, and you know.
I didn't. Now you say that. That makes sense.
And essentially, it was supposed to be a non-taboo dating site, and it evolved into MySpace Music and all this other really awesome stuff, and film and TV and all this other stuff that we ended up doing. We had a record label with Jimmy, and you know, all that. It was fun.
But you guys were, you guys were Instagram, meaning like what Instagram's doing today. Maybe the tech is more advanced, but at the time there wasn't the tech. But you guys were you were connecting people and allowing people to share their lives via the internet and share their lives, whether that was just by communicating, like putting up a message or putting up, you know,
it was a web-based Instagram, essentially, because we didn't have an app, right? It was all web-based.
But there was no apps.
So,
like the iPhone wasn't even out yet, I don't think, when you started.
No.
It wasn't, and you know, it was a lot of fun. And at one point, we had more traffic than Google, so we were the biggest thing that ever had been out, and we were here in LA. Tom and I were running around LA. You know,
you friended, right? You friended and unfriended. Is that what it's called?
Unfriended.
I remember, that was like the worst thing. Was like, I just got unfriended.
Yeah.
So that you guys are true trailblazers.
It was fun.
So you came up with the idea. Well, you guys came with the idea because I know you were like number 5 employee there or whatever, and you guys started a dating app, which is amazing. So you must
social network, but yeah, in the background is like everyone's macking on girls, you know.
So you got a lot of dates. I mean, you were connected with everyone.
Single during that time.
That must have been fun.
It was fun. It was great. It was really nice. We were doing a lot of, you know, we're traveling everywhere. We're, you know, pretty well known. Tom was the guy that everyone associated MySpace with virtually, and I was the guy that you would actually meet in person.
Right.
You know,
Tom was the face. You were the.
Tom would be with me a lot, you know, all the time during, you know, so we had like MySpace stuff everywhere, concerts and shows and events and all kinds of stuff. We activated Sundance for like 10, you know, like 8 years or something crazy.
We crossed over because I had Sundance. We basically owned the film festival, and we had Cannes. Yeah. And you guys would have parties, and we would kind of. Yeah. I remember you'd call to be like, "Can we do a party on Thursday night at the Ducap or whatever?" And we'd be like, "Yeah, okay, we'll coordinate together." Yeah.
We used to like work with like Sam from House of Hype.
I remember. I remember you had House of Hype with your partner, and I think you guys had good parties too.
Yeah, there were a lot. We had Beastie Boys one year at Sundance. It was awesome.
So when this started taking off, like, tell me when did you like know you had lightning in a bottle?
It was 2 weeks after. It just started growing like wildfire.
Literally 2 weeks after.
First offers within a couple of weeks. It's insane. It's 2003 when we launched.
But you knew it was going to be like whatever, you were multi-billion, or you?
No, I mean, we didn't consider that because, you know, we didn't even care at that point because we had made money in other ventures before. This was just kind of like a tangent. This was tangential to everything we had. Tom, also myself, you know, we stepped out of our careers for this because I had been, my background's in business development.
Yep.
It's like my background's in business development, and I started in the mid-90s in the Silicon Valley working for a lot of enterprise software companies and then .coms and stuff like that, you know, and I was one of 5 people in the country that had one specific specialty in business development, and I was really, really, you know, in demand at the time, and so startup in LA got me because they wanted me. I was in Silicon Valley. I'm from the Bay originally.
Yeah.
and they dragged me out here, and it was great. I loved it. I was one of the early guys at that company, and then we subsequently sold it. Got it to like $1.5 million a day in revenue, and sold it. And essentially business development and sales. And then I come here, and it's like, hey Tom, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing sales. It sucked the soul out of my life.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm not selling leads to banks anymore. That's what Lower My Bills did, and consumer lending stuff.
Yeah.
I am now. I don't want to do it. I just don't want to work. I made enough money to just chill for a little while.
Yeah, you could have retired. Yeah.
And then and then Tom said, I was 27 at the time, and Tom said, we'll throw parties, And so I said, cool, let's throw parties. And so we started doing MySpace launch parties all over the country and then all over the world initially for the first, 6 months to a year. And then it evolved as, hey, we need to acquire exclusive content. So I started going to studios, labels, and all kinds of...
we sold you guys a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, so we said, hey, let's buy, let's not buy, but we'll trade you. So Pharrell, give me your album, you perform it in front of the arc, in top of the arc light. I did this in front of the arc, top of the arc, like rooftop. Remember that theater?
I was literally,
Yeah, it was so great. And all his friends, it was like Snoop and Clips and everyone performing the entire album. We shot it, we broadcasted it live, we put it up 2-3 weeks before the album dropped. And it drove so much traffic. People would come for exclusive content. And that was the beginning of exclusive content. I did the first live broadcast in world history. It was from Space Nightclub with Paul Oakenfold.
That's amazing.
It was like a 14-hour broadcast, something like that. We had 500,000 concurrent streams at the time. At the time, 500,000 at the technology that was out there, CDNs and all this stuff.
Right.
Like how are you doing 500,000? That's
the fact you could even keep
concurrent sessions at the same time. It was tough, but it was a lot of fun. We did all kinds of really cool stuff like that. And
what was your eventually it obviously became a business where you were like, shit, now we got a real business that's worth a lot.
Sponsorships,
yeah, and then you were, when you became, at one point you woke up and you're like, we have the biggest tech company there is, more or less. I mean, maybe social media, but the word wasn't really around yet, social media, right? So I don't even know what you would call yourselves, but so then you kind of had to get responsible.
Yeah. So the thing is, we had a parent company from day one.
You did.
It was Intermix Media.
Okay.
And they had a company called E-Universe before. They took it public.
I remember E-Universe. Yeah.
Brad Greenspan. Rich Rosenblatt. A couple of those guys.
I know Rich really well.
Rich is a good guy. I love Rich. And Demand Media.
Yeah.
What did he do after that?
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, he's a warrior.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And so that was our parent company.
He's doing an NFT. He did an NFT platform.
Oh, he did? Which one?
He went around and launched one that he was doing celebrity NFTs. He went and got a bunch of studio heads involved just like 3-4 years ago. And then,
how's that going now?
I think he's not talking about it anymore.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It's a tough space.
That's what I was going to ask.
He partnered with like John Feldheimer and a bunch of the guys from the studios. He brought in friends of ours and they started an NFT company. And
I love Rich. He's so smart.
He's a smart guy.
Really smart guy. He's just nonstop. Keeps going.
We tried to buy them at one point.
Good you didn't?
Yeah. Well, they did IPO
they did.
at $1 billion, and then it went bad from there.
Man.
But it was.
Hope he got out.
Yeah, I think he did pretty good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so then, from that standpoint, I think there's a lot of unique tech that we had to build because it didn't exist.
You guys were first. Everything you did was the first.
So we had a partnership with Microsoft, and we're saying, hey, we can't compute on drives.
Right.
It's too slow. We have to compute in memory. So we're the first mesh network memory. So we're storing everything in memory across data centers
the first people to transcode, basically?
We're probably the first people to create a virtual mesh network of, essentially you have data centers, but we're computing in memory instead of on physical disk.
But people are having to pull it off, right? And
from memory, we're storing all this in memory.
So it wasn't even transcoding.
Some of it was stored a lot of it was stored in memory.
Wow.
So it was kind of cool.
How
like the first cloud is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, we didn't have clouds back then.
Right. No, you were basically peer-to-peer.
Cloud,
you were connecting peer-to-peer and then letting people.
Yeah.
They were creating the cloud before the cloud.
Well, because to have the cloud, you have to have everything connected.
You have to have everything connected.
And you didn't even. So okay, you get to the peak, and then tell us a little bit. Just I'd love to hear about because I know at my peak, I look back and thought it was so great because I was on top of the world. I was running Hollywood,
there, right?
but
like on top of the world.
You sit on top of the world. I remember I green-lighted any movie I wanted, signing any athlete we wanted. It was but I was traveling 270 days a year. I was in a 3PC 24/7. I didn't know what country I was in. I kind of was numb to life. And all it was what's next? Like, we're $2 billion today. We went from let's start a basketball agency. Amari's our first client too. We're the second largest sports agency in the United States. What's next? Okay, then we launched a branding company, and then all of a sudden we're like, whoa, we just sold Zika water to Coke. Okay, what's next? And it was like, we had to reinvent ourselves every day, and all of a sudden it went from being fun, for me at least, which I didn't realize I wasn't having fun, to how do I make it bigger? Because I have to, because that's what shareholders expect. It was no longer about this entrepreneur. I started the company in an office where I went into the building and said to the dude, I can't afford the $3,000 rent, so I'll tell you what, I'll pay you $1,500 the first year, but I'll pay you $6,000 the second, knowing that I was either going to make it and couldn't afford the second, or I couldn't afford my internet. So I cut a hole in the wall at night, spliced my neighbor's DSL, and then repatched it up. That's how I started Relativity at the time. So then all of a sudden I'm sitting there, and it wasn't fun anymore. Story, But they were the fun days, even though that crazy shit, right?
Yeah, we had the fun days.
I know that feeling of, you think it's an amazing feeling. You've just sold for massive payday. You guys are on top of the world. And yet, now you've got corporate parents, and you kind of have to act like grown-ups, which sucks. And you're turning in spreadsheets and revenues and profits and projections, and you miss a quarter or you don't hit it, and you got really pissed off business people that don't understand what the hell you're doing. I've dealt with that. So talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind, and how that's changed everything.
It was quite contrasting. We were all seasoned entrepreneurs in the beginning, so it was not our first show. So we had been acclimated to accountability, right? Yeah. And so everything was pretty accountable. All of our sales organizations, all the organizations were really, structured really well. But when we came in after the acquisition, it was probably 6 months, and so we had News Corp involved, and it's Fox Audience Network and Fox Interactive Media, and all the different entities started becoming Michael Barrett, and all these people started coming in, which I like him a lot, by the way.
Michael, he's a good dude.
Yeah, he's a good dude. And so it ended up becoming this thing where it was all about revenue now.
Right, it's numbers.
And lean out, right? So lean this out, revenue, lean this out. And
grow your revenue, grow your profit.
We're in the process of growing the biggest thing that the internet's ever seen, and then you get your balls chopped off, you know. So it was disheartening. It was tough, and
it's your baby.
It's depressing.
It's your baby because same thing with me.
We're paralyzed. Our hands are actually tied.
Yep.
The site was experiencing user experience issues nonstop, spam and slow and issues, all kinds of issues, and we need engineers for that. Right. We couldn't.
Yeah, you have to hire people.
Couldn't sustain, so we couldn't hire engineers. There was a hiring freeze. So what do you do? And then revenue, so many more ads, 10 times more ads than there was.
I remember that was part of the demise. Was it was wait, I'm just going on and just watching ads get served to me
everywhere. And then then the biggest part about the ads was the malware.
Yeah, you couldn't stop them. They
come through. Malware would come through the ads, and it end up hijacking computers and stuff. And so it was a pretty big safety issue, and so people just started leaving, And then Facebook said, "Oh, this is a huge opportunity. Let's open up to everyone."
Yeah, I remember.
And they were studying you guys.
Yeah.
Well, they basically took your audience. I remember that. They kind of said, "We're gonna do what they did, but we're gonna make more of a closed network." Is the way I kind of see it. And I remember it was MySpace, and then it was MySpace and Facebook, and then. When Fox kind of did that to you guys. But I want to focus more on what you were feeling, because this is your baby.
Yeah.
I've been there where I actually had hedge funds that owned us and giving us, corporate governance, same thing, cutting budgets. And, we're the biggest thing since sliced bread, and they're telling us now, sorry, your movie didn't open to the numbers you said. And it's I can't predict the movie business, but you can't? Well, then you shouldn't have that much money. You should have less, right?
Right.
But grow more. We were breaking $1 billion in revenue, and they wanted us to, be more profitable and, hire less people and spend less money and complain about our budgets.
Yeah.
Right? So, but I remember thinking this is my baby. I didn't really need to sell to them. Never wanted to sell to them. In fact, the first day they came to me, I said, no, I never will sell a share of this company. I don't want a boss.
Sure.
And somehow over years they kind of slowly built up. So talk to me about the feeling of like all of a sudden realizing this is your baby. I didn't know myself. I say this all the time. At the time, Relativity was me. I was Relativity. I didn't know myself outside of Relativity. And I had done many businesses like you, and I'd sold them, but I spent 10 years at that time or more, 11 years, building this thing to be what it was.
Yeah.
Everywhere I went, it was the CEO of Relativity, founder of Relativity. And I didn't even know my existence outside of that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, by the way, now you have to change it. So talk about the feelings.
It was the same thing for us too. And we felt we were the brand, because we had embodied it to build it, to grow it, it was a personal thing. It wasn't, hey, these are your roles, these are the objectives, but we were fully immersed.
It's not a 9-to-5 job.
We had fused into it. We'd become part of it. We were, part of the brand as an arm and a leg, an appendage. So it was when this thing started happening, we started feeling the pain. And then when 2008 came around, our earn-out ended and our contracts were up for renewal, we had the opportunity to renew, but then we decided collectively to just leave because there had been too much damage. And when we didn't realize that once we left, we were going to feel this pain, this contrast, this shadow, our own shadow, right? And it's so painful. And it's, hey, did we fail? What did we do? Like, what happened? Where did we go wrong? And the sale was forced by parent company. We actually wanted to sell to Viacom, and the CEO got fired because that deal didn't go through at the time. So, but we wanted to sell to Viacom. We didn't want to sell to News Corp. And then parent company pushed the sale, and it was premature. It could have sold for more money eventually. We could have been in a better situation. We could have still been around, But yeah, it was one of those feelings where, I know how Kurt Cobain felt because we all felt it, and we all had this depression. Tom had it, I had it, of all the guys.
I went through it. I talk about it here all the time.
Really rough depression. Yes. It got to a point where it's like, hey, we're on Mount Everest, and all of a sudden you're on street level, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, what are we? We're just thinking like, what are we going to do next to eclipse that? We're not even thinking about what are we going to do next.
No, you have to eclipse
that.
You have to eclipse.
You already have the biggest.
You have to eclipse that. So then, it took me some time to figure out, and then I actually left with blessing from management. So I had a totally different situation than Tom did. So Tom didn't want to do anything anymore after that. He was just like, hey, I don't want to work. I just want to do photography,
Yeah.
It's great. So I said, I'm still young. I still want to do some stuff. So let's go back into business development. Let's go back into tech. How old were you at that time? It was 2000. Sorry, I was 27 in 2003, and I left 5 years after. I was 32.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not time for me to retire yet. So let's do something. And so we had a problem. We had 7 billion ads a day. 7 billion impressions a day. That's a lot. That was a lot. So it's too much, right? Usability issues nonstop. So under monetized. Effective CPM, 1 penny across the board.
Jesus.
So low, right? So I said, hey guys, this is a huge opportunity.
Even today,
here.
That's ridiculous.
It's insane, yeah. So I said, hey guys, there's a huge opportunity here to monetize this better. I'm going to build a technology that's going to monetize this better. Senior management, great, fantastic, let's go. So I left, built a monetization solution to monetize it better, and I increased the yield significantly. MySpace was my first client. That was that company that I founded, and crushed it. And then profitable from the first month, and then kept growing. Didn't raise $1. Did hundreds of millions in revenue. Didn't raise $1 until the IPO. No debt, no equity, nothing. Balance sheet was clean.
That's amazing.
And then I ended up raising like $80 million in the public process, but over time. And so I did that, something else. But the whole time I'm doing this thing, thinking, hey, this is not sexy. This is ad tech,
So when you were between the two, when you left MySpace and you were like, fuck, like you said, it's like you lost an arm, basically.
Yeah.
I felt.
Hey, what am I going to do?
Did you ever go to, so I had to go through like this almost year where I finally hit reset. It took me a good year of like, I think I went into a depression. I said I was drinking too much. I was, but I did hit reset eventually and go like, and then I was able to reassess and be like, I knew who my friends were. I knew who my friends weren't. A lot of things around me changed.
Yeah.
But then I looked at it, I was like, wow, why did I care about all these things I didn't think I cared about?
Sure.
Why did I care about like people in the movie business and the, whether they thought what Variety thought or Hollywood Reporter thought or whatever.
Cares.
No one cares, but I did.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I thought they cared, and I thought it was everything. And then you realize it's actually all these things that I thought were so important, nobody gives a fuck about.
So I went through this transition, right? So then I had the next company and I did pretty well, but I was never going to be as big as MySpace. You know, it was never going to be one of those things. And, you know, obviously in the back of my mind, I'm like, fuck, you know, maybe I chose the wrong path. What am I doing? And then I did fine. And then along the way, running a public company is never fun. And people told me, don't do it. I'm glad I did, by the way. I did 2 of them along the way, but I had experienced some pain that I'd never felt in my life. Running a public company, right?
Oh, that's the worst.
Sarbanes-Oxley, not fun.
Oh, I'm on two boards right now.
Oh yeah, not fun, you know. And it's
like going to the proctologist every day.
Yeah, and it's a lot, right?
Literally.
A lot. And then they write about you, you know, and it's like, oh, this guy driving around a Bugatti, and it's like overpaid, just nonstop, nonstop.
It's the worst. Like you drive a fancy car, it's all of a sudden like he must be making too much money.
Overpaid.
It's like, well, but what about all the stuff I did prior to this to earn my Bugatti?
Exactly.
Yeah. I built it from the ground.
Right. Yeah. And this is my company.
Yeah. By the way, I made money before this company, you know, so
they don't care.
They don't care. They don't get. It doesn't matter. It's like shareholders are shareholders, and you know, it doesn't matter. They have 1 share if they have.
Did you see the guy? So you know, Elon Musk. I don't know if you saw this, but he, you know, obviously he has Tesla and he has all these other companies, and he came and said, "Hey, I've got my own AI I built, and if Tesla wants me to put it in Tesla, because he only owns like 13% or 12%, he's like, I got to own more of Tesla. Otherwise, I'm just going to go, just, you know, like I did with SpaceX, whatever. I'll just do my other company because there's nothing that says I'm doing everything in Tesla." And they gave him, I forgot what it was, 5% or whatever the right amount is, which technically is worth, you know, a couple $100 billion. And there's a guy, wait, but get this.
Wow.
So there's some guy, I forgot the state. I want to say it's like Minnesota or something. And he had bought, I think it was 3 shares of Tesla and made money, tripled his money, sued individually Elon Musk and Tesla and said, you can't do that. It's like, whatever, it's, you know, hurting shareholder value. And it created a derivative suit that he led. He made money. Now, I think he literally tripled his money, maybe it was doubled, and won. And they unraveled the transaction.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
How fucked up is that?
That's crazy.
That's a public company for you, though.
Ted, you know when you're talking about how you got to the pinnacle, then you hit the bottom, then you rebuild yourself, it's very similar to like an athlete winning a championship.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Same thing.
That's why we connected, by the way. Not to.
No, that's good.
Because literally, our first show we did, I'm like, holy shit, my life is the life you live every day. Because I was like, blinders, go do this every day, just like an athlete. Sure. And then you wake up one day and go.
And you wake up and you're like, and so
we're just uncoordinated athletes.
Yeah. No, literally.
But that's
what we are.
That's basically what because you're chasing, and in the pursuit of chasing, sometimes you lose yourself.
You totally lose yourself.
You wind up depressed by yourself, you know, and picking yourself up and rebuilding yourself in front of other people publicly is very tough. And so you're chasing this championship. Like he's had championships, and people wonder why athletes get up and do it all over every year.
They got to re-up.
They got to re-up. UConn coach said,
how do you get bigger?
That's how you get bigger. That's what I watched the national championship, and they got him on the bus at the end, and they're asking him about celebrating. He's like, I'm already thinking about next year's where it's going to be, because he's already won one before. And that's what is very similar. So a lot of people can identify with what you went through up here and then coming back down. But the hardest thing is getting back up.
So with that, I've figured that out. Okay, I'm going to show you how I do it. And I talk about it in my book, which is coming out soon, Winning by
Osmosis. What's the book called?
Winning by Osmosis.
So that's what we focus on the most. And I think for everybody here, winning by osmosis, because that's what we really talk to people about is specifically, you're going to fall.
Sure.
If you're not falling, you haven't tried. Okay, whether it's being an athlete, whether it's being an entrepreneur, whether it's being an actor. We have all different types on here. Choreographers, we've had the biggest names.
Sure.
You know, talk about from Bill Gates to Elon Musk, they've all failed.
Yeah.
Right. So you're gonna fall. Otherwise, you're just a troll on the side who hasn't tried.
Sure.
What do you do when you fail? How do you get back up?
How you get back up?
So I think it's a decision after a lot of internal turmoil and battle about what am I going to do, the depression, the virtual shit that never happens, all that stuff you think about that you think is going to happen.
Oh my God.
It's like the fear of future, regret of the past, fear of the future, regret of the past, you're never present. All that stuff, the surfing. Once you get past that stuff.
Fear of the future and regret of the past. I
lived
in it.
Yeah. Fear of the future, regret of the past.
We call it feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Feel the fear and do it
anyway. That's our motto here.
That's true.
That was good though.
Yeah.
You need to say that again.
Yeah, fear of the future and regret of the past. You're surfing between the two, but you're never present. You're never right now.
You got to be right
in the middle.
now.
So the thing is, like, I realized that I had to make a decision. Am I going to get back up or am I not? Because that's it. It's just one or the other.
There's nothing
in the between.
No, you can't just live in the gray.
You decide you're going to get back up. Okay, cool. But then you got to realign your priorities. So the way what really helped me so much is my book is about this too. It's about creating winner's circles, and having the winning circle will enable you to put your wins and your losses in perspective. And I'll give you an idea. I had a shareholder lawsuit. This is fun. A shareholder lawsuit. It was a $9 million thing. Like a demand letter for $9 million, right?
Well, you're going to be public. You get lots of those, right?
Right.
Yeah, it happens all the time, right? So, and I was thinking about this and thinking like, hey, I got a Cook Island Trust, I got Nevis Corp, I got all this stuff, right? I got all this stuff, right? Great, I'm protected. But at the same time, it's like I'm going to spend millions of dollars in fighting this thing that's going to be 5 to 7 years of my life, and it's like it's a lot. So then I was kind of upset about it, and then I have this dinner that I do every Thursday at Craig's for 4.5 years. There's 12 guys. I have 80 guys in my dinner club. Every one of them I've curated myself. They're all winners, and they've all done a variety of different things. I actually have a women's club too, and
I like to say that they were all losers because you have to lose to win.
You have to lose.
You have
50 times to win once.
Right.
That's just how it is.
That's the whole point.
That's the ratio, right?
Point.
So essentially, the winner's circle put things into perspective. So I was at one of my dinners. I was talking to my guy. He said, "Hey, you look down. Why are you down?" This guy's a PhD. He's a real smart guy. He's done really, really well in his life. And he said, I told him what happened. He said, "Let me show you something." And he shows me a docket. He said, "They're suing me for $150 million, and I've been fighting this for 6 years, and I've spent millions of dollars fighting this case, this lawsuit." And he's just happy. He doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care at all. It does not care at all. And so it put my situation into perspective. And from that moment on, did not care. It didn't happen. And it did not happening anyways. It didn't happen. Lawsuit didn't happen, okay? It was just a demand letter, right? Whatever. They were going to spend a lot of money, and it was just, whatever. But so that kind of situation put my life into perspective. Now, winner's circle has helped me, from the osmosis of winning energy. People around me winning constantly, and the perspective and the proportion of their wins too aligns me, and so my entire life I've always been in winning circles, and that's how I've gotten to where I am. And all the ideas that I've had that I've executed on have come from my winning circles. I am not a pioneer. I don't have ideas. I'm a fast follower. I follow everything. I reverse engineer things. I had a guy named Robbie Lee. He did the biggest dry cleaning roll-up in history, called U.S. Dry Cleaning. He was going out by mom and pop dry cleaning operations on a private vehicle, no cash, and no public equity. Private vehicle, selling dreams. I didn't even know what that was. Robbie showed me how to sell dreams, and there's a LA Times article you guys will find. I went on a $100 million acquisition spree, rolling up tech companies without any cash and with a private vehicle. I did the same thing. I learned it from Robbie Lee. He was in my winning circle, and that osmosis, I learned how to do it from him. And then, he showed me, he put the idea in my head that I need to take this roll up public. I need to go public with this thing.
Yep.
I figured it out. I got aligned with the people that did it. So it's all about that. I never had those ideas in my head. I never knew how to buy companies without cash. You're a roll-up guy. You know what I mean.
I call it dream keepers versus dream stealers. You said the same thing. And I surround myself with winners. That's it. When I wake up, my focus is different because everybody around me focus is different. And you create those winner circles, which it takes the exact mindset of people to raise the bar. Because it's easy to look at those guys that are not in the winner circle and be around. They can really suck they
suck the life out of you.
Everything.
Because they also don't want to see you succeed.
Right.
My life is comprised of winning circles exclusively. I do not have non-contributing energy in my life at all.
Period.
Zero.
Zero.
What's interesting
Zero.
about what your friend said, so that's how I live my life. So when Relativity went into a hostile takeover, and here's what's funny, I was going to tell you the opposite. You're like, you sat and thought, well, should I have not backed out? They came to me, I sat in a room, they basically offered me, let's just call it, what would have been come to the billions of dollars eventually, to just walk away. I'm like, I started this thing. No, fuck you. And they're like, otherwise you're going to have to put it in, basically, it wasn't even you're going to have to put it in a chapter. It was, we're taking it from you and we're going to chop it up. But we're going to pay you to basically go away, right? And I remember I was actually sitting in I've been in a 9-hour, maybe 10-hour room with 20 lawyers in Century City, one of those like, we're trying to figure it out, the all-nighters.
Sure.
It's 4 a.m. I called the time who was the president of my company, and we'd been there not since the beginning, but for a long time, and a good friend had equity, and I just said, dude, if we do this, like, we're selling out, and all these people that came to work for us at the time we had 1,000 employees, but call it the first 80 were still there. I'm like, they're there because of us, and if we walk away and they like, we're kind of, it's not about the money, and we can do this, and so we basically told the largest corporate raider in the world, his name's Paul Singer, to fuck off. He had taken down the government of Argentina.
Wow.
He had taken down the Congo. He had taken down, so there's a saying even to this day, if you see Paul Singer start to buy stock on your balance sheet on public company, you better run.
Oh, so he's accumulating.
He was doing that. He did it to try to do it at the time Warner, AT&T. He's done the biggest companies in the world. He was on every steering committee when the auto companies all went bankrupt.
Wow.
He took them all over. So he had accumulated in a weird way. He accumulated it when I was private, but he did it through trust, through getting his private equity guy to spend 8 years
different proxies
buying. I'm going to invest you another $100 million with you. Well, okay, cool. Just get a little more control. It started actually. Nobody knows this. I didn't even tell this. Never told before. So I created Relativity. I had no partners. I had no debt. I had an original partner, Relativity, who I bought out, and when it was kind of called Relativity Management, and had just done Marvel, and was doing all the studio deals, and was making more money than I ever thought I could make. I was doing 30, 40 movies a year, and I was, my quote was $2.5 million a movie, and I owned back end, and we were doing TV, and didn't have one shareholder. Loving it. And but I did do capital, structured finance for vehicles specific to studios. So like I did the Marvel, actually we're going to have the guy on who was at Merrill Lynch. It was the first guy that said yes to me, who gave me the $600 million for Marvel. But it was institutional bank money that was purely to a deal, not ownership of mine.
Correct.
And so I'd go to New York and I'd visit these hedge funds that were inside of that, because a bank would underwrite the cap structure, and then they'd go syndicate it. I'd go meet with guys who were syndicates, and they'd get updates. They'd say, yeah, I met with Universal yesterday. Here's the slate, whatever. So I'm having sushi with one of the guys, and he says, we don't invest in deals. I'm like, what do you mean? You've invested in the last 3 through one was, I think it was Citibank, before that was Deutsche Bank, before that it was, I think it was, I don't even remember what the bank was, Societe Generale or something. But it was 50 million, 100 million, that they had put in, to $150 million through 3 deals in a couple of years. I'm like, you put $150 million in deals, of course you do. Like, no. We invest in deals to learn about an industry. And we've never been in entertainment. So we did those deals to learn about the industry. And here's what we've learned. We want to own a piece of your business. And I'm like, it's not for sale. Like, I flattered. I have another deal that'll be coming down the pike. You can buy into it. I think it was Sony. It was the first time 2 slates were joined, Sony and Universal together, And he's like, no. And I was like, he stayed on me. And he was worked at the venture capital side of this company, Elliott. And the internet wasn't what it was today. You see, everything wasn't really public knowledge. And he started throwing out big numbers. And I made plenty of money. I didn't care. But I was like, never had a big chunk like that. So I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take every document that I've ever signed in the company, and I'll take every bank statement and every tax return, and I'm going to stick it in a back conference room. Because at the time there wasn't even a virtual conference. It's 2006. And you guys can spend as much time in there as you want. I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say counter. Take your time. There's no one else looking at it. You're not competing. I don't want to sell any piece, and I won't sell majority. But if you want to buy a minority interest, the money's coming to me because the company doesn't need money. Go through all those documents, make me an offer. I'll say yes or no. And they spent, I don't know, 3 months and lawyers and accountants, and they came back and they made me an offer, and I was like, oh shit, for 25% of the company. I was like, okay, I'll take it. So I did, and got this money. And what they were doing was, that was 2006. So between 2006 and 2010, I'd have a deal I wanted to do. And they'd say, no, don't go to a bank, because I was getting banks underwrite it, so I didn't dilute anything. We'll give you another $500 million, you don't have to waste the time. And we'll just put it into the company.
Yeah.
And then they'd say, but we just want this one more right. It wasn't debt. It was just like, we want a voting right. You know, then it was like, hey, we're going to put in $500 million more dollars, because we were doing this Universal deal, but we kind of think we should pick your CFO. And I was like, cool. You mean I don't have to have my CFO report to me or worry about that? Amazing.
Uh-oh.
Hire the CFO. Like, done. You know, and then it was like, so by the time it got to this place where it got to where they literally played the long game, I'm talking years, to where they finally could say, hey, guess what? You can't raise debt or equity without our approval. And we have control over all the accounts.
Yeah.
And I was just like, so they literally took me in a room and said, here's how it's going to work. And so we spent all night negotiating, and I said no. And I put it into a Chapter 11. I spent 2 years fighting it.
You detonated it. That's awesome.
I detonated it, and then said, but I'm going to buy it back.
Sure.
And they paid, they hired a firm called Rubenstein, that they were paying millions and millions of dollars a month to put bad press every day about me. So I couldn't buy it from the bankruptcy, so they could. And somehow I managed to still do it. I remember waking up every morning, I'd pull the covers down. I didn't want to look at my phone because I didn't want to see what bad shit they were writing about me in an article. And I managed to do it. They got it back. And I remember sitting there, I literally won in court. Nobody, you know, I had a $150 million fraud lawsuit, which I won. It was on the front page of every newspaper being sued for fraud. And when I won, not just won, but won in a 3-time summary judgment where the judge said, I'm throwing it out because you can't even prove you ever spoke to him, let alone that he defrauded you. Come back. They come back. Threw it out again. You still haven't proven he ever said a word to you, sent you an email, blah, blah, blah. Threw it out. Again, finally said, that's it, it's out. But that cost me $7.5 million in legal fees that I didn't get back. And front page of fraud. And then when I won, I don't even think they ran it on page 52. It was like, you know, oh, by the way, this thing was dropped. And I look back and I'm like, I wish I actually just walked away, because I did lose 2 years of my life. I mean, it was I learned a lot, but I got it back and the heart wasn't in it anymore.
Yeah.
I had the company back and people were there and we came to work every day and, you know, we tried, and I was just like, but it destroyed that, whatever the fun was in it.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize is, as much as I'd become the business, it's when I was like, I'm not the business.
Sure.
It's not what defines me. And I actually look back and, you know, we ended up selling it to another hedge fund, and it's profitable again today and they're doing great.
Nice.
But I never talk about it. I don't be like, hey, do you guys see what Relativity did? Like, because...
Yeah, there's this thing called Creditors Committee, which is...
I dealt with it.
Yeah, which is the thing that, you know, ends up costing you sometimes the company.
So they were on my side.
Yeah. You control the Creditors Committee. That's great.
Well, no, I didn't control them. They looked at what was going on, and I put all the money together. Despite first they were against me, obviously, and then when I put the money together and put the plan together, you know, they turned around and approved. They were 100% approved it. Like we paid every single secured creditor and then some. Everybody made money. There was one group that lost money, and that was it. But it wasn't that. We got the company back from the Creditors Committee, and we got it back from everyone. And it wasn't the same. And I remember I spent 2 years in hell getting it back, and then I spent a year in hell having it back. And then I spent a year trying to figure out who I was without it. And then I realized it had nothing to do with who I was.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the other side of had you stayed.
Yeah. Yeah, I realized too that none of this identified me. You know, business, work, none of it identifies me. It's not what people are going to talk about in my eulogy. It doesn't identify my character. So then I had to really realign myself and figure out what was really the most important stuff to me. And while I was going through all of this stuff with business, it's in every venture. It always is. I realized I was transforming physically.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And you know, and I realized that, you know, hey, like what's going on with me?
Feeling bad.
If I had a good day at work, I'm super happy. If I had a bad day, I'm just
Anxiety, depression.
Just bad and not in a good mood, and also infectious, to other people. Yeah. So then I had to recalibrate myself and really understand that, hey, I need to, first of all, learn how to be present. So psilocybin helped me how to learn how to be present in meditation. I practice TM.
Me too.
Learn how
every day.
Yeah, Denny.
Every day.
Denny taught me, Denny over there.
I do. Tom Knowles is who I actually learned from.
So that helped me a lot. And I realized that I wanted to practice gratitude. Mm-hmm. I really did sincerely. And I never really could until I learned how to be present. To learn how to be present. And then when you're in that state, then you could actually truly practice real gratitude. And I realized that it wasn't business, it wasn't money, it wasn't any of that stuff at all. For me, it was health, wellness, fitness, spirituality, my family, and my friendships, and that's all it was. And that's all
that's our
that.
Show.
That's all that defines my character, and that's what people will talk about in my eulogy.
When you talk
they don't
about
care about business and work.
When you talk about being present, people don't understand how important it is to be where your feet are. So we call it Wi-Fi. Like, be where your feet are today. And it allows your brain to really refocus and stay in the now, which is very hard to do. Because if you're thinking about what's happening tomorrow, or you're thinking about what happened in the past, it creates that anxiety. It creates this pressure on yourself. But when you stay in the moment, and you create the winner circle. I want to go back to your winner circle.
Such a cool thing.
Dinner. I think it's the dopest thing around, and probably still that motto. Mm-hmm. Talk about it. Like, what happens in this dinner? Like, I'm real curious about it.
Yeah, it's great. Actually, Natasha is part of I did this for women also. It's called the High Value Women's Collective. But the men's I've been doing for 4.5 years. I have a group of 80 guys. I've curated each one myself. And we all share similar characteristics. One is core values are very similar. They're aligned. What that really means is most of us don't even drink alcohol. I don't, most of the guys don't. We're very focused on health, wellness. Spirituality is important. We don't have guys cheating on their wives or their girlfriends. No one's out staying late, out late a lot, that kind of stuff. And very coachable. Everyone's coachable. No arrogance, no egotistical people. Highly accomplished. That means that we have best-selling New York Times authors in the group. We have people that have done, really great startups and real estate developers and actors and directors and producers and just full spectrum. And Adam Fields comes sometimes. And
God.
sometimes.
Does he really? Wait, how do you get hit? How do you take a guy like that and put him in a winner's circle?
I don't know. He's a guest sometimes of some of our friends.
Oh my God.
But it's interesting.
There's a name. I'm like,
I wanted to shake you up a bit.
Bug.
But anyhow, so it's interesting, and so this group, we've been doing it for 4.5 years. We do it at Craig's every Thursday, and it's just really nice. I wanted to force every one of us to be the smallest person in the room, kind of do it, in that capacity, just force it, and so that way we kind of feel that we need to be around this kind of category of person or people, and it's not accomplishment. That's not it. It's core values are really critical, and all the other things are really important. So I did that really well I did a dinner for 12 guys every Thursday. It's 80 guys in a group. Mm-hmm. And then I started thinking that, hey, I know a lot of women that are really very accomplished, very, they also, I have these conversations with them saying, hey, do you have a lot of friends in LA that are similar mindset and core values? And they all say no. So it's hard. It's hard in LA. It's really hard, especially for women. It's really hard.
It's actually hard in LA for men too.
It is.
I gotta tell you, when we connected, we're like, whoa, there's not a lot of us.
Because I get up at 4:45 every morning. Yeah. Right, that's discipline. Sure. I get up to meditate, pray, hot yoga.
Sure.
We have all of these same. We were talking. I was like, oh, you do TM, I do TM. You do hot yoga.
Yeah, this and
so good.
It's every day.
Every day.
And it's consistent.
Sure.
And
it's a lifestyle.
So when you're looking around and you're looking for people that look like you, and you're like, you have to step back a little bit. Like as soon as I met him, I looked at him and I was like, oh.
He reads. He can read people in 1 second.
I picked
flat.
it up.
The thing why we connect in general, all of us, is that we all have had our success. We all could walk in and be like, no, I did this, but it's like, no, it's first family first, sure. Period. And you don't have kids yet, right?
No,
but when you do, you'll realize that's everything. Mm-hmm. I woke up one day and I was just like, that's it. All it's about. I realized I was looking at my 1-year-old And I didn't grow up very religious. I mean, I grew up Jewish, obviously, but not like very religious Jewish. And I didn't even know if I believed in God. My grandparents were in the Holocaust. They came here from Germany with whole families killed, Holocaust 14 to 19.
So sorry.
My grandmother, 6 brothers and sisters, mother, father, grandfather, everyone. They came here. They were in camps from 14 to 19, came here at 21 with $10, no English, and my dad was 4. They met in post camps. But I forgot so I grew up, believing in Judaism, but I didn't know if I believed in God per se. And because I'm a scientist, I actually study science. And so I'm like, I couldn't mix.
It's true.
I just couldn't. But it's not true. What's crazy is
it's culture more. It's more of a culture.
I had kids. And one day, I literally remember the day it happened. He was 1. And I remember where I was sitting, and I was in a terrible place. And it was right when I was getting the company back. He was 1 year old because he was born in 2015. So we were in the heart of the battle. And I remember looking out the door and seeing him. And I was like, I know what God is. I'm looking at God. I was like looking at my kid, and I'm like, I'm literally looking at God. And I'm like, and my whole world changed. Where that's when I think it built. It didn't just like happen overnight. Where I was like, I don't care about any of this. I don't care about the press. I don't care about if that actor is my friend or not my friend, or, I don't care if I make another movie. I care what he's gonna think. And my job is to make him a better person. And then everything went and my core, things that I just. So when we talk about being an athlete, I realized, oh my God, I've spent 10 years with blinders like this, being told this is where you're going to go, this is the speech you're going to give, this is the deal you're going to close. And I was like, I don't know who's managing my money. I don't know who pays my bills. I don't even know what I like anymore. I know what I think I like, but I don't think I like what I think I like. I'm supposed to be wearing a 3-piece suit, but I fucking hate suits. And I changed everything.
Thank God for the pandemic.
Right?
No more suits.
No, but I went from, I was living in a 14,000 square foot house, and that house mother just selling everything. I live in a 4,000 or 40-something 101 story with the kids where we're all close. I had, I don't even know, cars I'd never even driven at different friends' houses. And it just went to I like nice things. But it changed everything. I live for my kids. And he's the same. I'm
about simplification, and I don't have bad days. No matter what happens.
I've never seen you unhappy, actually.
I'm never going to have, I know you heard me yelling when coming in. I think energy is important, and I think choosing your response is very important. Sure. And, Ted's working on 4 different books at one time. And I was trying to
I can see
figure it out.
Let's talk about your books.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. How are you able to write those books at the same time?
So I've been crushing stages for about 20 years. I've been public speaking. I do keynotes on all kinds of stuff, places, masterminds all over the world and stuff. I've been speaking for a long time.
Is that your primary, before we go to books, is that your primary thing right now you like to focus on? Is
I have business. I bought a tech company in Ukraine in 2015. I still run that tech company. It's in stealth. I'll be coming out with what we're doing next this year. It's a connected television advertising business now. And I have a real estate portfolio, passive income.
Are those the televisions that run the ads and you get the TV for free?
No, that's my friend's company, actually. Ilya. That's his company.
I know Ilya.
Yeah, Ilya's great.
He's a legend.
He's a legend. He's wild.
Dude, I went to I think a brunch at his house. I stayed 20 minutes. I'm like, this is every single person I don't want to be around in LA and left.
It's so funny. Yeah, it's wild.
He's exactly what you talk about, like him a lot, but having fun.
Sure. He's always having fun. He's always happy guy. They did pretty well with Pluto, though. So
he did very well with Pluto.
Yeah, Pluto did really well. So essentially, I was, I've been on. I come alive on stage. I do really. My brainstorm genesis is strongest on a stage. Never prepare for any talks. I could talk about anything for hours, And so I've had this opportunity for a long time. I get invited to speak everywhere I do it, and then podcasts. I've been on hundreds of podcasts as a super guest. I guess Natasha's put me on something as well, and I feel that I do really well on podcasts too. And then so about 6 to 8 months ago, I realized I got to speak my book in front of a camera.
Oh, it's so cool.
So I started to do this so I could crush chapters in an hour and a half. It's about 7,500 to 9,000 words.
Wow.
And I crush in front of a camera, almost like a podcast setting, but for just for myself.
Just for yourself.
And I could work, and I have outlined all my books, and I know what chapters are next and so I get the inspiration. I could hop around, and there's a lot of storytelling in each chapter as well. So I think there's a lot of human connection, and you can relate to stories better. So I could hop around. I have 4 different projects right now, 4 different books. One is almost done, and then they're all completely irrelevant, by the way. I have Winning by Osmosis, which is coming out soon.
Love that name.
I love the name. Yeah, it's dope.
Thanks a lot. And you could also lose by osmosis too. There's a chapter called Losing by Osmosis.
Yeah. Losing is probably more important
it's
than
more
winning.
important. It is, and it's based on your
the Churchill quote, "Man in the arena." So that's our motto.
Thing.
Nice. And then the next one is the microdosing guide, how to dose out of any situation.
You got to break that down though, because that's really good.
The microdosing guide?
Yeah, because how to dose out of any situation, like how to get out of it.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of that in K therapies as well. And then I have a book next year. It's called Indian by Osmosis, and we're talking about where I spent my first 9 years in Houston as a kid. And
I'm from Houston.
Yeah,
Texas.
I do. That's why I brought it up. So, and I learned how to fight there. It was pretty racist. I mean, I'm from India.
Yeah.
And I changed my name. My original name is Tej with a J. And when I first book
T-A-J?
T-E-J, just one letter different.
Yeah.
And when I come out with my first book, I go back to my original name. It's part of my whole authenticity movement.
That's amazing.
Thank you. And then so it talks about my life here, growing up here as Indian, and it was very tough because people didn't like Indian people. They were weird, and Indiana Jones, they were eating monkey brains and weird shit like that. So it was tough. And then all of a sudden, like 15 years ago, yoga, Kundalini, breath work, like pranayama, meditation, everything Indian started becoming cool. And then within the last 10 years, now we're running every major tech company. So now we're actually trending. Now we're cool. Now we meet a girl and I'm from India. They're thinking, oh, wow, that's cool. It was never like that. It was never like that. And so I talk about the whole thing, and then like all the modalities, which I think are great from India. I talk about that as well. And then I have another book at the end of the year, next year. It's called Validation Vortex. And so I started doing videos about that recently, and I talk about, how we're all kind of sucked in. A lot of people are really sucked into this validation vortex.
Yep,
validation by third party. What restaurants we're going to, what are we wearing, like every aspect of it. And I was in the vortex, and I got out of the vortex.
Dude.
And I looked at my whole life.
That's the one I want to read.
Looked at my whole life, and I'm thinking like, wow. And I'm subconsciously focused on validation, but I wasn't really focused on credibility as much anymore. And I'm back now into that and focused on credibility.
That is of everything you said.
Permanent.
That's permanent.
That to me is, I think, what for sure I went through validation vortex, got out of it, and I'd say I've never been able to put it in words, but I'd say that's part of what we're doing here is showing people that credibility is key, and validation doesn't matter.
Validation is temporary. Makes no. In fact, and I talk about this, and I have another video on my page talks about how validation cannibalizes credibility.
Yeah,
because your mind state is
you're trying to prove something.
You're trying to prove something instead of building something, right? When you get credibility, generally you're adding value to someone else's life, not your own, right? And that gains credibility. And I feel like humility is also a big part of credibility too. People who demonstrate humility are generally credible, and that's a huge weakness. I mean, it's a huge strength,
yes,
and a weakness in people that people don't demonstrate humility. It's a big thing.
Because humility
is so important.
I mean, I was just speaking about this today in front of like 6 guys that we're going to be putting in the NBA draft about how to be humble. Because if you don't humble yourself, the world will humble you.
And so, it happened to me.
So, being able to serve people is something that that's a part of me. I spent my whole life wanting to serve people, so I find purpose in giving and watching other people and building people to be not only successful, but to have the integrity, to have those things. But that's a part of my life.
Humility attracts help.
It does. It makes people realize you're human. Humility, human. To me, it's like I know we got to let you go, but when does your book? When do your books drop that we can? And how do we see them?
It should be done in the next few weeks, and then we're shopping deals, so hopefully it'll be out in the quarter after. So
well, we'll make sure we put whatever we can do to promote or help.
Thank you so
we
much.
want to help. It's been such an honor to have you on, and
thank you so much.
Great.
And I want to meet the ladybug.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's his car.
I know. My request is the winner circle.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good one.
That is fire.
Well, thank you for joining us. Like, it means a lot, and
Thank you so
what you've
much.
accomplished is, I think for at least my generation, just, I look at it as you guys started the movement that we know as social media
This
today.
is huge.
So,
Thank you.
real honor to have you on.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, my man.
Pleasure.
Yeah. So, guys, this has been another great episode of Failure with Ryan and Ted. And Ted's been super. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Also, make sure you click that little bell right there so that you can be notified every time that we drop a new video on this channel. Ted, where can we find you at on socials?
Find me on Instagram at Ted Skilla, TEDSKILLA.
You have YouTube?
You have a YouTube channel?
Not yet.
Okay.
Soon. I have a pod coming out soon too.
We'll make sure to help
we'll make
with
sure
that.
to
To me,
push
I'm
that.
going to be watching that one.
Thanks.
He's got as you said, copy all kinds of things. We had a guest on just randomly 2 weeks ago who said, I just realized the hard way. I was making Coke all the time, and I should have just made Pepsi. And I stole that. I'm like, holy shit! I'm always making Coke. I'm always trying to trailblaze. I'm always getting shit for it. The press always says it's not going to work. I have to fight. I'm like, why not let somebody else do it first, and then I could just make it better.
Exactly.
It was like
cheaper.
it's so brilliant.
It's not paved roads.
And I don't know why.
It's cheaper not to pave a road.
Right. I was
Right.
like, why did I always feel like I'm a failure if I didn't create Coke?
Like, yeah, Friendster spent a bunch of money to pave roads, and we just came and used
Yeah.
the roads they paved.
No, literally, he said it.
That's
He's like,
probably one of the smartest things that you can ever do.
remember, I was like, he's like, I just realized, why do I have to create Coke? I fail, and then I get shit on, and now I just create Pepsi. And I'm like, oh my God, it's that simple.
Yeah, truly.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope to have you back, and
Yeah,
if you guys have questions, obviously you know how to reach him, and
Drop comments
drop
below.
comments for us. And as usual, even if they're trolly, as we respond to them a lot. So we hope you don't troll, but if it makes you feel better, we hope you have a better day.